Natural science. Over the last 100 years or so, there has been an overarching understanding of the relationship between Christian faith and the natural sciences, which presents them as warring factions who are incompatible at their very foundations. This has been fueled by the incredible popularity of Darwinian evolution. In spite of the fact that not all science is as biased against Christian faith as that particular view of biology, so fields such as physics are far more congenial, and in spite of the fact that both theology and science have made significant advancements over the 20th century, other less hostile forms of evolution have been argued for, and theology, at least in some quarters, has become more rigorous. This view has dominated discussion to the point that some Christians do not think that science is a redeemable practice, and some scientists think of faith as hopelessly antiquated. And yet, such a view shortchanges both theology and natural science. Though there are still differences in how theology and science approach reality, and these differences are significant, the two fields have much more to contribute to each other and indeed are already interrelated in a profound way. One of the things that is interesting about the pursuit of science is that it operates with certain presuppositions which it cannot do without, and yet have to be taken without proof. One such issue has been alluded to in the discussion of the contingents of creation above. Science operates with an assumption that there is a single overarching order in the universe that is equally applicable regardless of what level of nature we are looking at. That is, from subatomic particles to the movements of the planets and stars. Where did this idea come from? Regardless of all the experiments that scientists have done and all the data that has been accumulated, the point cannot be proven from within the scientific enterprise. Support for it can be amassed, and has been amassed, so is repeatedly shown to be an intelligent presupposition, but it is a presupposition nonetheless. When we look back at our discussion of various views of creation, the Judeo-Christian doctrine of creation out of nothing is the only understanding of the universe that lines up with the actual practice of natural scientists, especially physicists. Scientists are not looking for first principles. They're not expecting that their experiments will yield theological truths. They are certainly not treating nature as something that finally has no reality. They are so far from affirming that there are multiple conflicting orders in the universe that they probe ever deeper into what seem to be contradictory phenomena to try to find out the general rule of which particular phenomena are specific cases. This presupposition, to speak of no others, is already full of theological ideas. The universe has an order, and it is a real order, but it is not a self-evident order. It must be examined. Experiments must be conducted in order to understand them. This order did not cause itself, but was brought into being. As a side note, in my early years as a Christian, I was consistently told that the Big Bang Theory was a godless and terrible explanation for the universe that firmly placed it as an opponent to Christian faith. As it turns out, though the Big Bang Theory is not the same thing as the Christian doctrine of creation, it is far closer to it than the previous accepted theory, steady-state theory. Whereas the latter affirmed that the universe has always existed and will always be the same, the former claims that the universe had a beginning, which places it only a hair's breadth from saying God caused the Big Bang. It is not the Christian doctrine, but it is closer than science has ever been. Another idea that is latent in scientific work is that nature can indeed be explained, but that it is as if it is crying out for explanation, even at the subatomic level. Further, there are human beings who are actually capable of understanding nature, to one degree or another, and bringing it to coherent articulation. Why are these the case? Why should nature be comprehensible at all? Why should it be able to be clearly articulated? Science cannot answer these questions, not because of any weakness in science, but because the answers simply lie beyond science's scope. Regardless, they must be the case for science to carry on its work. It is appropriate to take just a moment to acknowledge some further aspects of science that are relevant to remember as Christians. It is often portrayed that religious claims are based on faith while scientific claims are not, but based on evidence. This is based on a very specific understanding of how the results of experiments are related to our scientific theories. Once it was widely believed that one first has scientific evidence, then one logically deduces theories from that evidence. In spite of the fact that this view has been entirely discredited, it still persists among many people who use such a conviction to dismiss religious views in favor of allegedly neutral scientific ones. The state of the problem today is that although not everyone can agree on exactly what the relationship is between experiments and theory, it is the overwhelming consensus that things are more complicated than the above view would lead one to believe. Much more could be said on this topic. that to some would be very interesting, though for others it would likely put them to sleep. But I will content myself to make one more observation on science, in particular on the topic of falsifiability. Some advocates for science, as opposed to faith, will argue that while religious claims are considered sacred and beyond revision, scientific claims are always open to falsification. That is, they may be proven wrong, and once they are proven wrong, they are abandoned and the search for a more adequate solution begins. This is misleading on both counts. First, religious claims do change. They have changed many times, most notably with the Protestant Reformation. In many ways, the Christian doctrine of justification by grace alone and not through any work of our own should prepare Christians to be more prepared than anyone else to admit they might be wrong. Second, science is not nearly so nimble as this view would seem to imply. Scientists often hold on to refuted theories long after the fact and are often reluctant to abandon a theory that has served them well in the past. It turns out that a willingness to change or not is based more on individuals and the pressures of culture than it is on whether one is dealing with science or religion.